How do Australians feel about Aboriginal? And what it is like to be Aboriginal in Australia? Let's find out what people from Quora think.
As an Aboriginal Australian, I'm going to tell you how it feels like from a child perspective. And I'm going to start with the bad things. Walking into classroom on the first day of school and noticing you are the only student who is not white. People are shocked my grades are above average and I am well behaved. Hanging out with white people is a crime to my black friends. This has resulted in me being called coconut, brown on the outside and white on the inside.
Finally, when Australia Day comes up, you don't know should you call it that or Survival Day. But enough of bad things, I got a chance to celebrate my culture through dance, paintings and art. Another group member got really offended by this question, while in reality there is still some sort of separation in between of white Australians and Aboriginals. So he commented,
"How do Australians feel about Aboriginal, you ask? By this you imply that Aborigines are not Australians, when in fact they are the original Australian people, with many thousands of years of unbroken linkage to the land. This is how people get marginalized when they are not even considered Australian in their own land. Moreover, I didn't see any Australian who responded to this question state that Aborigines are Australian."
Another group member shared his thoughts, what is it like to be Aboriginal, destroying common stereotypes. I encourage all who have wondered sadly about a state of Aboriginality in Australia to at least scan it and take the correct statistics on board. I don't identify as Indigenous, though some of my family do. So let's get started. Myth number 1. Some white people complain that Indigenous are getting more welfare than whites in the same position, seeming to believe that being Aboriginal is like some kind of never-ending credit card. While it is true that Aboriginal are more eligible for some minor alternative benefits to white Australians, this issue is blown out of all proportion by those white people who objected. The middle-class welfare available to families is at least equal and far exceeds individual Indigenous assistance in many cases. Disadvantaged white people also have access to low-cost loans to buy government housing through the housing department, although many landlords would not rent to Indigenous people. Another story from the same guy on Quora. A white friend was applying to rent a house with a mutual friend who happened to be Aboriginal. He wasn't able to get out from work, so she done all the business with a estate agent, and it was a big yes. The owners had accepted the application and were pleased with both of the professionals, their rental history and credit ratings. He felt he really should make an effort to go and meet the agents. So next time she went in, he went with her. A few hours later, she got a call from agent. The owners were very sorry, but they actually just that day found someone else.
I was once in a taxi heading home, and to make a conversation, said to the middle-class woman, "I've always thought of driving cabs, but I'd worried it will be dangerous. Ever had any troubles?"
Not never, but I only drive during the day, and I never pick out blacks.
Now imagine your life if strangers who held an undeserved low opinion about you had this kind of power over things. As whether you work, whether you get a place to live, whether you can get a ride home in rain, for God's sake. Maybe that's why statistics are clear here. Australia-wide Indigenous life expectancy is about 17 years less than white Australians. Many people believe this is due to alcohol abuse. However, the vast majority of Indigenous people do not abuse drugs or alcohol. In fact, statistics show that 37% of ATCI people do not drink at all, as opposed to 22% whites. Then of course there are terrifying suicide epidemic which affects all Australians, young and old, white and black. But the Indigenous numbers are particularly alarming.
I've seen it claimed that Indigenous people have an ongoing hate of whites. But really, while the most Indigenous people on Earth have stories of rejection and prejudice they have experienced, there are very few that hate all whites. Most take people as they find them, just like any other reasonable person does. The only ones who hate all police are the criminal element.